Rafter P Construction is the design-build contractor for all of your construction needs. Quality and customer satisfaction will always remain our top priority. The American dream has inspired the Rafter P team to push to be community leaders and support the local youth because that is our future. Let's now talk with the founder and owner, Brad Pryor.
All right, guys, today we're here to talk to Mr. John Dobmeyer with D&D Services. We had his son on, probably 2 years ago or so in our Decatur house doing a blower door test. And John's here to talk about why Rafter P goes above and beyond. Pretty much what this series is about. We're going to do a couple of them about different things of what we do that's above and beyond, and honestly what you should do, I guess is the best way to say it. John, this unit here that you pulled out of a house, what, was 5 years old?
Yeah, about 5 years ago, we quoted a house for a local competitor, and he came back and said, hey, look, you guys are too high. I said, what do you mean we're too high? He said, well, you're about $5,000 higher than everybody else. And I said, well, what are they putting in, that type of thing? And he kind of went through it, and I said, well, you really need to do all these things to make foam houses work. I said, anybody can make cold air. You can make cold air all day long, but it's all the environmental aspects you have to look at, the moisture, the mold, the bacteria that gets in the house, that kind of thing. And so we looked at, I didn't see the numbers or anything like that, but we looked at it and I said, look, you need all this. And he says, well, the other contractors say we don't. Okay, well, call me, if something goes on. So we let it go, and about 5 years go by and I get a phone call. He says, hey man, my parents' house needs some work. Something's going on with the air conditioner. We can't figure it out. So I hem-hawed and I went over there and looked at it, and I started thinking, this house looks familiar to me. Come to find out, it's the house that I bid 5 years ago. So I went up in the attic and started looking around and talked to the customers, and they'd said that the house was always wet, damp in the house, and the floors had never really settled. And they always have allergy issues. And I said, well, I'll go take a look at what we got going on. So I climbed up in the attic, and it was a disaster. The unit was up there. It's 5 years old, and it's got water just dripping off of it. The ductwork. This right here, yeah. It had water dripping off of it. It had bacteria growing on the sides of it and everything. So I thought, well, this isn't a good situation. And so we started looking at the moisture content in the house and stuff like that. And we were running about a 75% humidity in the house with a 72-degree temperature. So it leads us all back to the original, okay, your right equipment, the right house. They need things that are certain to this house. So looked at the unit, opened it up, and it was completely rusted out. As you can see, this is a 5-year-old unit behind us. It's completely rusted out. So we looked in the return, all kinds of dirt and buildup, and it was never sealed properly. So that's another aspect you have to look at. And we took one of the ducts off the supply plenum, and now we see where the allergy issue is. It was covered in mold and mildew growing in there, which makes for an unhealthy living conditions. And I've always said, the air conditioning system, the right air conditioning system is a lot cheaper than a lawyer or a doctor, because that's what you end up with. Yeah. And so we started looking at other things in the attic, stuff I'd never seen before. Galvanized metal rusting in the attic, parts of the air conditioning system. And it's all because, there was no dehumidification in the attic. There was no dehumidification in the house. The unit was oversized and no fresh air being brought in. And so kind of leads back to the time when I first started working with you about 10 years ago, when you started developing your company, getting into higher end stuff, wanting to go into foam. And I said, well, you're going to get sticker shocked. I've been doing foam for 22 years now, and I've seen a lot and gone through a lot, and we figured out a lot of stuff. But you have to change your mindset when you're going to build a foam house. It's the best thing in the world you can do is put foam in a house. But if it's not done properly, it's your worst nightmare.
Yeah.
And so, and I've seen some of the stuff, we've both grown in this since we've been working together. Mm-hmm. From the way you wrap your purlins now and stuff like that. And so we've learned a lot.
Right.
But
so as you being in an AC business, me being in a custom home business, our price is our price. We always hear, well, Rafter P is too high or D&D Services is too high. Basically, most of the time, it's not apples to apples.
Never.
The industry, there's only so much money to be made in the industry. You pull yourself out of it. Mm-hmm. You can't be high and just because you want to be high because of your name. Our houses have to appraise, all that good stuff, or people can't buy them.
Exactly.
People can't finance them. It's that simple. So I'm not too high. I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do.
Exactly.
And I'm doing it on the front end instead of change ordering your depth on the way down as we go. Or I'm not going to leave you a product 15 years from now. It's not going to work no more. It's going to leave you health conditions, or we're going to be in a lawsuit. So, what are the things that we are doing outside of our metal buildings where we're actually covering all the metal, flashing it, all the stuff like that. But with our air conditioning systems, what are the things that we do that separates us hugely from everybody else that builds barn doors and builds custom homes? Because people just blatantly ignore it.
Oh, I see it. I see it with your houses. Well, for starters, whenever you bring us a floor plan to design, we go through the load calculation on that house. And as you've seen with the blower test before, your houses are a lot tighter than most houses, okay? So we have to now put air conditioning equipment in there that will compensate for that, because you can make the house so tight that you need fresh air. Well, you give us the ability to do that. We put a fresh air exchanger in the house. And in our case, we do it where it also exhausts the bathroom fans. And you say, well, what's the big deal with that? Well, a standard bathroom fan will allow moisture to migrate back through it. Well, if we use the energy recovery ventilator, then it won't do that. And it provides your fresh air to the house plus bathroom exhaust, and you can't hear it. So these things that don't sound like a lot, they mean a lot to the house when it's being built and being done. And it costs more to do that. You can sure put a $35 bath fan in each bathroom, but the problems it creates, the price of the ERV offsets all that. Mm-hmm. And you're one of those builders that understands that, and then you can justify that to the customer. You can tell them, hey, this is what we need to. It's education is what it is. Mm-hmm. So you've educated yourself on that. Now, when you get into the equipment, sure, we can put a cheaper unit in. Anybody can make cold air, like I said before. But you understand the problem with putting just a regular air conditioner in there with poor qualities about it. It doesn't have a capability of dehumidifying. It doesn't have the capability of stepping up and stepping down in tonnages and loads. But you as the builder understand that. And it's not my job to convey that to your customer. You guys have educated yourselves over the years to be able to convey that, the importance of that to the customer. So when they're spending that extra money on the front side of the job, they're not going to have to pay for it on the back side. Mm-hmm. Like, for instance, this case, 5 years later, my $5,000 bid, I was $5,000 higher than anybody else. 5 years later, it cost them $16,000 for me to fix the mess. Mm-hmm. That's just, they would have rather spent the money up front.
Right. And what would you say about the dehumidifiers and stuff that we put in like attic spaces? Okay. What's the need for that? Because when we're working through design, people are like, okay, well, if we raise the pitch like this and do this and stuff, like, well, what's extras going to cost? And we start talking into, well, you create those big open spaces up there where we cannot condition it because there's no insulation between the ceiling, the floor to ceiling to deck. So,
well, what you have passive cooling through the sheetrock. So let's say you have your house set at 72 degrees temperature indoor. In the summertime, your attic's going to be about 10 degrees warmer. What that creates, though, is the moisture always goes to the warmer spot, so to speak. Warm air holds more moisture than cold air. So the moisture in the house is going to migrate to the attic. Well, what happens when you have an air conditioner putting out 52-degree air? It's going to start sweating. When your ducts come off the unit, they go down to what's called a boot. It's a galvanized thing. It distributes the air into the house. Well, when you have 50 or 60-degree air hitting that, and it starts to sweat because there's so much moisture in the attic, kind of like putting a Coke can up there, then it starts to rust. Well, then it'll bleed into the sheetrock. Then it bleeds through the paint. And you're looking at your house going, where's that stain coming from? And this is 3 or 4 years down the road. Well, what we do is we've learned to solve that problem by putting a dehumidifier in the attic. And people are like, why do you have a dehumidifier? All it is there to do is to climatize the attic. I'm not going to bring the temperature down, but I'm going to bring the moisture out. Mm-hmm. So now I don't have bacterial growth in anything. I don't have anything rusting in the attic, that type of thing. So that's the main reason we do that.
Right. And how often does a builder, I'm not calling out any of your builders, but how often do you think a builder actually pays attention to that?
Never.
Right.
They never pay attention because when the builder walks away, some of these problems we see don't show up the first year. This didn't show up. The conditions inside the house showed up right away, but the homeowners didn't want to say anything because of the builder situation. But when it became an actual problem where it was leaking into the house, it was causing damage to the house, they had to finally say something. Well, the builder was gone out of the picture by this time. It's 5 years later. So some of the things we're looking at aren't today's problem. They're problems going to be created and have to be dealt with several years down the road.
Right. Well, and I look at it as this: if the builder is going to do this, what else do they skimp on that you can't see?
Exactly.
You can't see. You know, they're not structural engineers, and you know, in the state of Texas, you don't have to do MEPs. You know, none of that stuff to build a house. You have to pull up a septic permit. So you're relying on that builder 100% and trusting him that he's going to do what's right.
Exactly. And this goes back to your education, where you as a builder and your team, not just you, your team is always trying to learn more about what we do and why we do it. A lot of builders, they just trust their subs 100% to knock it out and be right. Because then it falls back on the sub. You know, that's his problem, not mine. No, really, it's everybody's problem. So, yeah, I understand exactly where you're coming from on that, where other builders just, you know, they don't take the extra time.
So what do you think? So doing the blower door test, why is that being tight? It's not like we're trying to make ourselves so tight. They have to buy more air conditioning. I've heard that before.
Yeah.
That's not the case.
No.
We're just trying to keep the air conditioner working harder. From working harder.
From working harder. Yeah, I was going to say. You know, if you do a blower door test on a house and you do a conventional house, there's so many air exchanges that take place in a 24-hour period on a house with the doors closed, okay, just because the house leaks. Mm-hmm. All right, so you take a conventional house and you take your house and you would test both those houses, you're going to see a world of difference. So imagine testing a conventional house, and when it's done, the air leakage rate is equivalent to a 2-foot by 4-foot opening. That's how much air flows through the house just with the house sitting there. Now you take one of your houses, and I think the last test, it equivalated out to like a 6-inch by 6-inch leakage in the house, if that much. So 6 inches by 6 inches as opposed to 2-foot by 4-foot makes a big difference. Yeah, we get by with a lot less air conditioning on your house. And like I said before, we can make cold air. So for instance, this is rule of thumb, a 2,000 square foot house takes 2 tons. Mm-hmm. Now we load it out to verify that. Our key component in this is moisture removal. So you can't just go say, I'm going to put a 2-ton unit in there and it's going to solve my problems. No, because I can make cold air with a 2-ton unit, but now I have to watch the moisture in the house come down. So we use variable speed equipment, for instance, the condensers are variable speed. They're not just 2-stage, they have 5 stages. And they're targeting the humidity now. And so they're bringing those down. That humidity comes in through infiltration, which the blower door test tells you how much infiltration you have. And with your houses being as tight as they are, you don't have very much infiltration. So we have to make sure the house is healthy for the person to live in. And that's why we do the extra on the air conditioning equipment.
Right. And I would say, too, the other one thing we hear is like, well, that's only 3 tons for this house, or 2 tons. That's not enough, because you get those old school people that have either built a house 15 years ago or whatever, and you know they got that's not enough tonnage. So you're going to tell me that's enough tonnage? Like, I promise you, it's going to be enough. And that's a good argument all the time, but it's just you can tell somebody's built a house before.
Listen, my first house I ever did like this was 22 years ago. This old man came to me and said, "Hey, I'm building a house in Caddo Mills, Texas. It's going to be concrete, foamed walls, and this is what you need to do." And I'm scared to death. We mean 2 tons on 2,000 square feet? No, that'll never work. He said, "Trust me." And he was out of Oklahoma. He couldn't find anybody in this local area to do this for him. I said, "Well, I'm willing to learn, you know, but I'm scared. I'm not going to lie. I mean, this is like on the different side of the world for me." So we did it. And to this day, that 2 tons is still cooling that 2,000 square foot house. I still know the owner of that house. But it was a big jump for me to take to trust it. Now we have technology behind us. Now, you used to have to do a manual J load calculation with a pen and paper. We have programs and software to do that for us that guarantee that load. So now when you send me a plan, we put it in our computer, we do the load calculation on it, and it's a bonded, guaranteed load calculation. And we stand behind our work, 100%. And we had an incident about 4 years ago where we had a set of plans. It wasn't you, as another builder. We did a set of plans. We came up with a price. We came up with the equipment package, the whole 9 yards. We put it in. We kept getting a call. It's just not keeping up. It's not keeping up. And so we went back and looked at it. And the first thing I noticed when I walked in the house is they had vaulted the ceilings in this house. Well, that was a last-minute change, something we didn't know about. And we put the quoted package in, And so when we went back and figured out the cubic foot of the house was a whole lot larger than they originally planned. We didn't argue about it. We ripped it out. We recalculated. We put the new system in, and we're good to go. So we stand behind everything we do. We do it with load calculations. We have bonded packages, and we're not gonna leave you hanging. That's for sure.
Right. And would you? I know you carry, or I know you rep one major brand, but I know you have some others. But when you're talking about what we're talking about right now in the air conditioning period, it doesn't matter about the brand. It just matters to make sure it's set up the right way.
Yes, that's true. To a degree, it doesn't matter about the brand. There are some lesser brands out there, but if you stay with the major four, they're going to have product lines that do what we do. We have our own particular package we like to use because we're so comfortable. We know what it will do. But I can't sit here and run down another brand just because it's another brand. They all make good products.
Right. All right. Well, I hope this helped with air conditioning, and like hit us up if you have any more questions or you're confused. But we'll talk to you soon.